Everybody, welcome to Down Home Backyard Gardening. Today I am going to do something that I started about 2 weeks ago. We're going to plant this in the garden to bring in worms. Yes, worms. So if you are not a worm fan, this might not be the video for you, just saying. But I think this will be incredibly beneficial to my gardens, and I think to yours also. Hear me out, and let's grow. Okay, worms. Now, we all know how important worms are, right? Especially when you go fishing. All right, just being a dork. Worms in the garden are super important. Obviously, we know what they do. They do tunnels, they help uncompact soil, they leave their castings, so they fertilize. There's all those. But I want to get a little bit more in depth into the worms and why we really need them in the garden before we get into what I'm going to call vermicomposting, which is worm composting. And I might have said that wrong. I'll put the actual name of it up right here. And why I'm going to start doing it. Let's discuss the benefits of worms for a few minutes right here. One of the best things about worms is when they're tunneling and they're, moving through the soil, those tunnels will let air down into your soil. So they're aerating your soil on their own. While they're doing that and those tunnels are formed, those tunnels become highways for all kinds of different organisms and everything that's in the soil. So they're creating highways, they're aerating. Those same tunnels also allow water to move through your soil. So if you have a compacted soil, you definitely want a bunch of worms. If you have a soil like mine that is just full of nutrients, grows things really well, the worms are just an added benefit because as they're doing the first few things that I just mentioned, they're also leaving behind their castings. And if you ever go to Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace or Menards or wherever you are, whatever nursery or big box store that you have around you, when you go to the soil aisle, they've always got bags of worm castings. Well, why buy it if you can just kind of farm it on your own? One of the other things about the worms in the soil is they also help keep nutrients in. They make the soil come to life and allow all these different nutrients, all these different everything, honestly, to be in your soil. So you want worms, is what I'm saying, big time. They also help with the development of roots for plants. They help them get deep because the roots can go into those tunnels and then branch off and go find whatever they need. So there's a lot of benefits for having a healthy soil full of worms. And I definitely have that out here, for sure. But I want to add something to my soil. And again, we're going down the rabbit hole of experimenting on this video, believe me. But more about that here in a minute. Now, one thing worms show is their presence absolutely indicates a very healthy, vibrant, nutritious soil. If you have a dry, compacted, just horrible soil, you're not going to have worms in it. But if you dig to put in a transplant or you're making rows to plant your seeds and you've got worms around and you're moving worms out of the way, that means your soil's very healthy. That's a great indicator of soil health. Another one, just a complete side note, just off the top of my head, are mushrooms. If you go in your garden and you see mushrooms growing, don't freak out. That literally means that your soil is very, very healthy. So, little side note there. Mushrooms are actually a good thing to see in your garden. 100%. We just went over the importance of the worms, why we want them in the garden, the benefits of the worms in the garden. Now, there are a few drawbacks. When the worms are hungry, if there's not a lot of food in the soil for the worms, they can nibble on plant roots. That's definitely an issue that, especially if you're planting, all that kind of stuff right there. But you still want the worms in your garden. Now we're going to get into the experiment part of this video. A couple weeks ago, Gardening with Crocs put out a video on this topic. And my friends over at Old Southern Kitchen and Garden did a video of their own on the same topic. Now, I'm going to be totally honest. I never even heard of this vermicompost. Never ever thought about it. One, because I have a lot of worms in my garden. My soil is very, very healthy. So it never even occurred to me to think about, man, I need to do something to get more worms in here. No, I have them. But watching their 2 videos got me thinking, why just do composting like this with these things right here? You know, you turn them and you shift everything around. Only do composting like that when we can do it with worms in the garden. So as I have teased in the last video or 2, I've already started doing this, because once I did the research on this topic, I was like, you know what, why not try this? I think it'll work. It makes sense. So why not give it a shot? So I've already buried 3 of these in those 2 gardens over there also. They've been in there for about a week and a half, about 10 days, I think, maybe a little bit less. And each time I've opened them, there have been worms in there. Now, not some giant, a massive amount of worms just going crazy over what I'm feeding them, which we'll get into here in a second, but there's enough worms coming in to these 3 in garden bed compost bins, I don't really know what to call this, that it makes sense to do it. Now you can go on Amazon or, you know, wherever and get a worm composting bin and spend $100 or $140 or whatever. If you all want to do that, hey, by all means do that. You're gonna have another bin just like the one I showed you, except you're gonna have a bunch of worms in it. Those take forever, from what I've read and researched, for the castings to build up enough to where you can start moving the castings out into the garden. But why do it that way? This is what I'm thinking, when we could just plant these things in the ground, put the food that the worms are going to eat, even if you put them in a worm composting bin, put that in the soil, let them actually draw in more worms, let all those worms then eat the food that you're giving them in these little containers right here. And as they move on, they're dropping their castings and they're doing everything. I think this will do 2 things. It will help the life of my soil, and it will bring in more worms, which will again only benefit the soil. Now, I don't know any drawbacks other than the food that you put in here. Obviously, you don't want to put certain foods, which we're going to go over here in a minute once I get this thing in the ground and I show you how I'm doing it. Leafy greens, those kind of things is what you want to feed the worms. But again, we'll go over that here in a minute. I think this is going to work. I don't know, but like everything on this channel, I want to experiment. And for those 2 channels to have done this, it really got me thinking. I spent about 2 days doing research on this topic. I think there's really no drawback to it. And another cool thing, actually, that I just thought of, as my voice is cracking, is if this area gets good to go and you want to move it, you just pull it out, shift it, move it right back in another place. So these aren't stuck in stone. You can move them around, you can shift them wherever you want them. But I only bought 4 to give them a shot. Now I need actually 12 or 15, honestly, if I was going to do this like for real. But I started with 4. We're gonna give 4 a shot, see how it goes. But let me show you how I actually got them in the ground, and then what I'm using to start feeding the worms. Okay, we're gonna do this bed. Now, in the last video, I pulled out the onions because I'm gonna put more peppers in here. I still gotta get the peppers in. But I'm gonna plant this down in the soil about right there. Look at that, y'all. See, I'm not joking about the worms. I have a lot of good worms, but I want even more. Now, what's cool about these right here is they actually have these little lips, so the worms can come in. They don't have to come under and all that. They can actually come in from the side and get right in here. Now, I only go about 5 inches down, right about like that. Pack it in, and then I'm going to go ahead and open it, And since there's a worm in here, right there, I'm gonna go and put that guy right in there. Okay, y'all, and just like that, we're done. I mean, literally that simple. Now let's get some food for the worms. And I've been growing these specifically, not necessarily for this reason. I'm not gonna act like I was thinking of this, you know, months ago. But I've let these Swiss chard just grow and grow. No reason other than I like having the red Swiss chard and this orange Swiss chard out here. It just gives a different color to the garden. But we're gonna use these because they're leafy vegetables and the worms like those. So let's use what we have growing already in the garden. So we're gonna use that one and that one. I'm not gonna use too many right now. I wanna get this started, and worms like the leafy veggies. So this is what we're gonna put in here to get this guy going. Okay, you want to rip everything up, bite size, so to speak, just to make it easier for them all to get to it. Okay, and there we go. Nothing too much or crazy or anything like that. That's literally all there is to this. I am just experimenting to see if this will even work. I hope it does. I don't see why it wouldn't. The only two drawbacks I can really think of doing this in the garden would be ants or bees because of the hole at the top of that lid. I will keep an eye on them, make sure that's not an issue. I don't think ants are really gonna, I really don't think, as I got a wasp flying by my head, I don't really think ants are gonna be an issue because I'm not putting in meats and stuff like that, which I'm about to explain here in a minute. It's leafy stuff. So we'll see. The other three that have been out here for 2 weeks, no issues with ants or bees yet. And we hope that stays the same way. Let's talk real quick about what you want to feed the worms. All right, and I wrote them all down, so I'm going to read the list, and I'm going to put the list up here on the screen right here. Best foods: leafy greens in small portions, which we just did. Melons, squash, and pumpkins. Again, cut them up, put them in. That might be an issue with rodents, though, so be very careful with the melons. That smell, you know what I'm saying? Be real careful with that one. What else we got? Broccoli, apples, and this is a surprise, pasta. Now, not pasta with oil or salt or, you know, that stuff on it, sauce and all that, just pasta. Worms love the pasta. High in carbs, and then they put all that right back into the soil in a different way. Okay, worst foods for worms. Oils, and then the 3 S's: spices, salt, and sauces. Again, no sauces, no oil, no spice, and no salt. Meat or bones, you don't want to put those out there. That will bring in all kinds of other stuff that you don't want. Plus, they're not going to eat them. No dairy, no acidic foods, so no limes or lemons or pineapple, nothing acidic. Or food with chemicals, of course. Or non-foods like sawdust, plastics, things like that. I mean, common sense, definitely not plastic. But those are the foods you do not want to give them. When you have kitchen scraps that fall into the categories of the good foods, put them out there. I'd even put out eggs too. I don't know if they would compost them. I don't know if the worms would. But either way, that area, if you're putting eggs out, will eventually break down and then help that area with nutrients and calcium and everything else. All right, everybody, so that's the video. Again, experimenting, having some fun, thinking outside the box. Both of those videos got me thinking, got me researching, and were totally the genesis of me doing any of this. So, guys, thank you. I will keep everyone up to date on this experiment. If it's working, if it's not working, if I want to tweak it, if it's just an absolute abomination of a horrible idea, or if it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Either way, or anything in between, I will share it with everybody here on this channel. Wrapping up this video, everyone, if you got anything out of it, if you think I'm crazy or whatever, it's all good. Do me a favor, share it, like it, and subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already. If you are not a subscriber, and I have earned your subscription today, please hit the subscribe button, hit that bell so you're always notified for whenever I upload videos, and come join this continuous journey of gardening with all of us. Y'all, you can see JoJo's tired. It's hot out here, it's humid, she wants to go in. So until next time, everyone, take care, God bless, shine bright and harvest hard, get out there and experiment, and I'll talk to y'all again real soon. Bye. I'm gonna call a version of what I'm gonna call a version of vermicomposting, which is worm composting. And it is so humid. Okay, let's talk. I hope I have the right hat on. So when you have chicken scraps, when you have okay, B, I like you, but go away. When you have kitchen scraps,